I want you to picture two people walking through the same airport. They board the same flight. They sit just a few rows apart. They both look completely ordinary. The first person is wearing a designer watch worth $12,000. Their phone is the newest model. Their suitcase cost more than most people spend on a month's rent. Before takeoff, they're checking emails from a job they secretly hate, because missing even one bonus would throw their finances into chaos. The second person is wearing a plain sweatshirt, comfortable sneakers, and a 10-year-old backpack that still works perfectly. Their phone is 3 generations old. Nothing about them looks impressive. But when the plane lands, this person has something the first one doesn't: freedom. Enough investments to stop working whenever they choose. Enough savings to ignore financial emergencies. Enough passive income to say no without fear. From the outside, one looks rich. The other actually is. Welcome back to Uncle Bob Finance. Today we're talking about one of the biggest financial illusions in modern society: why real wealth looks completely boring and almost invisible. Because somewhere along the way, people confused looking wealthy with becoming wealthy. And those two paths lead to completely different destinations.
Now, here's the strange thing. The wealthiest people you will ever meet rarely spend time trying to convince strangers they're successful. Because once money begins creating freedom instead of attention, your priorities quietly change. Let me explain. Most people think wealth is something you can see: a luxury car, a huge house, designer clothes, exclusive vacations, expensive restaurants. But almost none of those things are wealth. They're spending. And spending is the exact opposite of wealth. Imagine 2 buckets. The first bucket contains everything people can see: cars, shoes, jewelry, furniture. The second bucket contains everything nobody sees: investment accounts, emergency funds, business ownership, cash flow, time, optionality. The average person spends almost every extra dollar trying to fill the visible bucket. The wealthy spend years quietly filling the invisible one. That's why genuine wealth often looks surprisingly ordinary. You know what doesn't impress your neighbors? A fully funded retirement account, a paid-off mortgage, 12 months of emergency savings, a diversified portfolio growing while you sleep. Nobody walks past your house and says, "Wow, look at those incredible index funds." Nobody compliments your disciplined monthly investment contributions. Nobody notices your financial independence. And that's exactly why so few people pursue it. Humans naturally chase visible rewards. Our brains love recognition: likes, compliments, status, approval. The financial industry understands this perfectly. That's why advertisements almost never sell freedom. They sell appearance. Notice the difference. Luxury car commercials rarely talk about transportation.
They sell identity. Watch advertisements don't sell timekeeping, they sell success. Fashion companies don't sell fabric, they sell belonging. Everything whispers the same message: people will admire you if you buy this. But admiration has a terrible return on investment. Here's something that completely changed how I think about money. Every dollar has exactly one job. You either spend it to impress today's strangers, or you invest it to protect your future self. It cannot do both. Suppose someone receives a $10,000 bonus. One person immediately upgrades their car. For a few weeks, everyone notices. Coworkers compliment it, friends ask for rides, neighbors peek through the windows. Then something interesting happens. The excitement disappears. The car simply becomes normal. The payments remain. The insurance remains. The maintenance remains. The depreciation never stops.
Now, imagine the second person quietly invests the same $10,000. Nobody notices, nothing changes on Instagram, no compliments, no attention. For years, it looks like nothing happened. But 10 years later, one decision created an appreciating asset.
The other created a depreciating liability. One purchased attention. The other purchased options. This is one of the hardest truths about building wealth. The rewards are delayed. The sacrifices are immediate. That's why patience becomes such a powerful financial advantage. Most people cannot tolerate looking average today in exchange for extraordinary freedom tomorrow. They'd rather feel rich this weekend than become wealthy over the next decade. And businesses profit enormously from that impatience. Here's another pattern you'll start noticing once you see it. People who constantly advertise their success often need other people to believe they're successful. People who are actually secure financially rarely think about proving anything, because confidence doesn't need an audience. Insecurity usually does. Now, this doesn't mean wealthy people never buy expensive things. Of course they do.
The difference is timing. Most people buy luxury first and hope wealth follows. Actual wealthy people usually build wealth first, then decide whether luxury is even worth it. And many discover something surprising. The more financially secure they become, the less interested they are in buying things simply to impress people they barely know. Because once you've experienced real financial peace, status symbols lose much of their power. You stop asking, "What will people think?" And you start asking, "What will this cost me over the next 10 years?" That single question quietly changes almost every purchasing decision. Take a look around your own life. How many purchases were made because they genuinely improved your life, and how many were made because they improved your image? It's an uncomfortable question, but it's also an incredibly profitable one. Because invisible wealth begins the moment visible approval stops becoming your financial goal. If you're enjoying this video and want more practical lessons that help you build real financial freedom instead of just looking rich, make sure you subscribe to Uncle Bob Finance and turn on notifications.
People believe becoming wealthy requires making dramatically more money. Sometimes it does. Most of the time, it doesn't. What usually changes first isn't income. It's behavior. Imagine two employees who both receive a 20% raise. The first person immediately upgrades apartments. Then comes newer furniture, a nicer car, more expensive vacations, premium subscriptions, more dinners out. Within 6 months, every extra dollar has quietly disappeared into a more expensive lifestyle. Now look at the second person. Their paycheck increases, but their life barely changes. They keep driving the same reliable car. They stay in the same home. They continue wearing clothes they already own. The only thing that changes is an automatic investment transfer that quietly grows every month. One raise created higher expenses. The other created future freedom. That's why lifestyle inflation is one of the greatest enemies of invisible wealth. The dangerous part is that it never feels dangerous. Every upgrade seems reasonable on its own. A slightly nicer apartment, a slightly newer phone, a slightly better car, a few more monthly subscriptions. Individually, none of these decisions seem significant. Collectively, they can consume an entire lifetime of earning. Real wealth isn't usually destroyed by one terrible financial decision. It's slowly dissolved by hundreds of comfortable ones. Here's something fascinating. The richest person in a room often spends the least amount of energy trying to appear rich. Think about that. Someone with $10 million invested earns more from their assets than many people earn from full-time jobs. Do they need strangers to admire their shoes? Not really. Their confidence comes from ownership, not attention. Ownership changes everything. When you own productive assets, your money begins working while you're sleeping. Stocks don't care what you're wearing. Rental properties don't care about your social status. Businesses don't reward expensive watches. Compound interest couldn't care less about luxury brands. Money quietly grows in silence, which is why real wealth is almost invisible. Another habit separates wealthy thinkers from everyone else. They ask a different question before every purchase. Most people ask,
Can I afford this? The wealthy ask, what is this replacing? Because every dollar spent today eliminates another possibility tomorrow. A $1,500 phone upgrade might replace several months of investment growth. A luxury vacation might replace a future business opportunity. A larger mortgage might replace the ability to retire 5 years earlier. Every purchase has an invisible opportunity cost. And opportunity cost never sends you a receipt. That's why it's so easy to ignore. Here's a simple exercise. Imagine someone offered you 2 gifts. The first is a brand new luxury SUV. The second is complete financial independence 20 years from now. You can only choose one. Most people immediately say they choose financial independence. Now, here's the uncomfortable truth. Every unnecessary luxury purchase quietly makes the opposite decision. Not all at once, but little by little. One payment at a time. One upgrade at a time. One impulse purchase at a time. The biggest difference between people who retire comfortably and those who never do often isn't intelligence. It isn't luck. It isn't even income. It's their willingness to delay visible rewards in exchange for invisible progress. Invisible progress feels boring until one day it becomes extraordinary. Imagine opening your investment account after 20 years of consistency. Nobody applauded those monthly contributions. Nobody celebrated the weekends you skipped unnecessary shopping. Nobody complimented the older car you continued driving. But suddenly, those invisible decisions have created something remarkable. Choices. The ability to work because you want to, not because you have to. That's the highest form of wealth. Choice. Not luxury, not prestige, not appearance. Choice. You know what's interesting? Financial freedom often arrives so quietly that many people don't even notice the exact moment they become wealthy. There's no parade, no dramatic announcement, just a growing realization that money no longer controls every decision. That is what real success feels like. Calm, predictable, almost boring. Which brings us back to the 2 people from the beginning. One spent years purchasing things that made strangers believe they were successful. The other spent years quietly purchasing freedom. One built an image, the other built a life. And 20 years later, the difference isn't found in their closets. It's found in their calendars. One still has to ask permission to stop working. The other simply decides. If there's one lesson I hope you remember after today's video, it's this. Real wealth isn't designed to impress people. It's designed to protect you. Protect your family. Protect your time. Protect your future. Because the greatest luxury money can ever buy isn't something you can park in your driveway. It's waking up every morning knowing your life belongs to you. Thank you for spending a few minutes with me here on Uncle Bob Finance. And remember, the wealthiest life isn't always the loudest one. More often than not, it looks completely ordinary until you realize that behind that ordinary life is extraordinary freedom.